lowest level, what you do? You either cut down on your developments, which partially have been done. Then whatever the PSDP is planned, you cut it down. And the other thing is you borrow. And you borrow heavily. You borrow heavily. Now that is something which is important, and a slide before that, which is there, is a public debt. Yes, the next one, sorry. Public debt figure, which is there, and if you look at that public debt figure, you will know about that the public debt figure is basically coming to a very high figure. That's about 4.491, basically the domestic borrowing, and 3,669 are the foreign currency borrowing. Now, foreign currency borrowing, one can understand that part of it is due to the exchange difference. About whatever the growth is, about 138 out of that is due to the exchange variation. The rate has gone up, and the impact of the rate has increased the rupee borrowing. In rupee terms, the foreign currency borrowing. The impact generally in foreign currency is only $1.2 billion. We have had additional net $1.2 billion the foreign borrowing, but the local borrowing, the domestic borrowing have gone up tremendously. The government has to find borrowing from the banking sector for the budget, and will have to work on that to be able to do that. They have even breached twice the overall commitment which is contained in Fiscal Responsibility Act, which they have already passed in the Parliament earlier, which determines the limit of the government borrowing from the Central Bank of Pakistan. There were heavy borrowings which were done. Let me take you quickly to another sector and try to conclude that. Inflation, please. Yeah. Inflation, please. Inflation is slide 16. 16 slide. This slide gives you the slide before that. This is component of inflation, slide before that. If you look at the inflation, yes, there have been a tremendous improvement in terms of inflation as compared to last year. But we are far higher than the targets which we set up. And partially, whatever gains were achieved in the earlier part of the year, in the later part of the year, due to the heavy borrowings, and what heavy borrowings mean from the central bank, printing of notes. The printing of notes means higher inflation. And that's why the thing which has gone down at one point to a single digit, which was coming about 9% from 23 or 22%, basically has again gone up in April to about 13. And there are serious problems in terms of, but the main component of that is the food inflation, which is about 12% of the GDP. 12% is the food inflation. I have tried to give you a chart, next slide basically, next one. These are charts which just give you the prices of certain essential commodities, not those prices which are prevailing in the market, the prices as contained in the economic survey. I believe those prices. And based on that, we have given that what has happened in the marketplace from 2001 to 2009-10. And I'll only come up with some price levels as compared to the last year. If you take the last year prices, effectively as compared to last year, the kerosene, gas, fuel, all have gone up. There have been slight adjustment in terms of, because the figures are up to March, there have been a slight reduction in terms of the super petrol prices, which was about 1.8 basically percent, but others have gone up. The electricity charges, and I'm talking of the poor man, where the electricity up to 50 units basically is about 30% increase in terms of the electricity. And please let me tell you, this time the subsidy for the power sector has been reduced by 50%. It has been cut down. Now that 50% reduction has to be converted into the increase in terms of the prices of the power sector. Part of it has come the next day of the budget for Karachi, which we have heard. Rest of it will have to come, because we have reduced the subsidy, and rightly so, because subsidies is something which are not, they're counterproductive. but the prices will go up, and that electricity prices increase will result, on the one hand, the electricity price increase, on the other hand, the borrowings, and our continued cost of the security situation. It is very difficult to achieve a lower level of inflation. Our target for next year by the government is 9.5, but I can assure you that it will not be, and that's what the various independent surveys have said, it will not be less than 12%. So there will be 12% inflation situation, which is about to continue in the 2010-11. It's chicken, mutton. I've analyzed all the products. Basically, sugar is the one which is standing out because it was 45% increase in 1 year, from one price to the other, 45% increase. And you must have heard the chairman of the Sugar Mills Association. Today, I've heard him on the TV that the prices will go up further because they were not brought in line with the international prices. So we're expecting a little more on that as well. So these basically are the price levels which have gone into the economy. I've already talked about the subsidies. Let me take you to the key objectives of next year's budget and conclude. Slide number 25. Before that. Now, this year, the Honorable Finance Minister has given these are the objectives. Protect the economic recovery by reinforcing the fiscal austerity. So we'll have to protect the recovery. There has been a slight recovery in the economy, and which is fragile. It is admitted by the government it is fragile. It is something which is not sustainable in the normal course, but we are expecting 4.5% GDP growth in 2010-11. We are projecting a 4.5% growth. The World Bank and the ICMAP projections is about 3.3% as against 4.5% which we are talking. The other basically is that fiscal austerity. The fiscal austerity have been announced that there have been reductions in the salaries of the ministers. The fiscal austerity needs some very serious thinking. It needs to look at the overall structure of the costs from top to junior most level of the bureaucracy and the government as a whole. Can we afford the number of ministries we have? Can we afford the costs which we are carrying? Is there an alternative use to all this cost? How should we reallocate these costs for the benefit of common man who are the electorate for any political government in this country? The second of check inflation and restrict borrowing. Now inflation, I have told you, we are expecting it to continue at 12%. And government feels that it's 9.5%. I wish it will be, but that's something which still have to be seen. Achieve a measure of self-reliance through better domestic resource mobilization and to reduce reliance on borrowings. Now, yes, the subsidies have gone down so PSDP can go up. Subsidies have gone down so there could be a secular debt situation which may partially be addressed, and it can also be addressed what Shabbar mentioned by a float which may continue if the VAT is implemented or on the export sector as a whole, basically on the basis which they are planning at the moment. If that happens, then there may be a float of 220 to 250 billion, which may be, and that's the level. That is the level of the secular debt which we have at the moment. So that is something which is yet to be seen whether we will be able to achieve that. Reform and enhance social protection regime by innovative schemes, better targeting of the subsidies for the needy, and eliminating waste. Reduce the burden of public sector enterprise. There is a burden in the public sector enterprise. The finance minister acknowledged there's a drain on the resources of the government by these public sector enterprises. The budget document doesn't come up with any plan, neither a plan for restructuring nor a plan for privatization. I'm sure some work must be done on that. Generate employment opportunities. I've said the employment opportunities will arise from SME sector